So just a little introduction about myself. It's actually good to see some familiar names logged into the WebEx. But for those who don't know me, I'm Jeff Policastro. I'm one of the business directors here at CSOLS, specializing in informatics solutions and delivery. I have over 15 years of experience in the laboratory informatics industry, including expertise on products such as LIMS, chromatography data systems, electronic lab notebooks, and SDMS systems. And that's over a wide spectrum of industries, including the life sciences umbrella, petrochemical, chemical, food and beverage, forensics, environmental, and been providing delivery solutions for my customers via their LIMS implementations, upgrades, enhancements, integration of instruments, as well as other ancillary systems, as well as post-deployment support, primarily in the QC, QA manufacturing arena. So just a brief overview of what today's agenda will look like. We'll go over an introduction to how to attain the maximum value out of your LIMS solution. We'll go through the top 10 benefits that you can see from that implementation, how to maximize the value of that implementation through defining and measuring, build an understanding of the LIMS capabilities, best practices for LIMS quality environments. Then I will conclude the presentation, and at that time we can go through the question and answer. So are you getting the maximum value from your LIMS implementation? You've invested a large amount of time and money into your project. So are you actually getting the benefits that the system was sold under? And if not, you need to understand why not, how you go about measuring the value, and what you can do to increase your chances of success. And we'll review all of those as we move through the presentation. So the first step is really to understand how laboratories are evaluated. The first one is through quality and defensibility of the results. So that's usually not a major problem for most laboratories, especially once you have an informatics solution in place. But as we go through the top 10, we'll actually designate by the letter Q if it's quality related. The second is based on timeliness and dependability. Often major issues for the laboratory and laboratory customers is how quickly they can get the results, and are they getting them in a way that's dependable. We'll call this T as we move through the presentation. And then the last, of course, is cost and productivity. And this, depending on the industry you're in, may or may not be a problem. But we'll designate those through the top 10 list as the letter C. And then the reality of it is really all laboratories, regardless of industry, are evaluated in this way. So one of the top 10, or coming in at number 10, expected benefit of the LIMS implementation, which would be a C, is the elimination of legacy applications. These legacy applications have overhead associated with them from both the system or software component and support, as well as the legacy hardware. So if you're running an older LIMS system or a proprietary database of some sort, it may have been written 10 years ago. The code set is old. You might not have internal support for those who developed it. And the hardware might be an older unsupported platform. It's very difficult to get parts, do memory upgrades, so on and so forth. So one of the goals of your new implementation is to really get the end user adoption so you can eliminate these legacy applications. The next is improve automation within the laboratory via instrument interfacing and workflow changes. The lab should recognize better throughput and reduction in transcription errors through the automation of these instrument systems. Easier to meet regulatory requirements. The LIMS system, once it's put in place, should help the defensibility of the results, improvement of your quality procedures, as you now have records of all the steps that went into each particular sample, and it's further supported by the audit trail. Also, another key time savings is the reduction in turnaround time for sample analysis, review, and approval. Now this is automated instead of a manual process. You're not going through doing a manual review, hand signing it, then moving it back, to the next review process until final approval. This can get tedious as sometimes paperwork gets lost, or if there is a deviation in the data, and it has to get kicked back to the analyst, that can take a different, larger amount of time. And through the use of LIMS, this should be fully automated.